Hello.
Stu.
Hello, how's it going, buddy? Fantastic to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Really good. How about you?
Yeah, doing super. Little chilly today in New York.
Yeah, sure, I can imagine, because obviously there it must be, what, 11? 11? 10?
Are you
What
asking
time is
about the temperature or the time?
time, this one?
Oh, it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Is it colder in the mornings there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's chilly. And there's a little bit of a breeze. So,
What kind of temperature have you got?
it's probably around 15-ish, maybe 16.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, here's it's that time of year where it starts to completely change, you know? In Japan,
Where are
it
you?
just suddenly does it. Sorry.
Stu, where are you in Japan?
Chiba.
Chiba.
Mm.
Do you know Mickey Mouse?
I don't know Mickey Mouse.
Oh.
I live quite close to him, apparently. One of his destinations, anyway, yeah.
Gotcha.
So can you, I'm sure most of the people here know you, but could you please give us an introduction to yourself before we start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Michael. I'm from Happy English. I live in New York. I'm an English teacher. I started teaching English in 1994 in Japan, in Sendai.
Nice. Nice. That's nice.
Yeah. So I've been doing this for quite a long time, and then I worked for some language schools. But 2009, I started Happy English. So I do one-on-one tutoring here in New York in my office and also online, plus Instagram, plus I've written a couple of books and YouTube and all sorts of stuff to help you guys learn English.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
So you have many years of experience. What did you feel? How did you feel your time in Japan within a language school was?
Oh, that was the best 4 years of my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really, really good. I was lucky because I worked for a company called Geos, Geos, and my teacher trainer was really excellent. He was an SIT graduate. A lot of the teachers there had been there a long time, so I got a really great on-the-job training experience in teaching. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, of course. And I noticed that you still have carried over the Japanese side of your time into your videos now, yeah?
Yeah. I think for a lot of Japanese learners, having an English translation is helpful to help them, understand it more. And so I started putting Japanese subtitles in my videos a couple of weeks ago.
Is that because your target is for Japanese learners of English, or is it because just as an extra, just to help?
It's just as an extra. Just an extra. Most of my students that I work with are Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
That is kind of my niche market. But I know that Japanese learners like to have that, and I thought, you know what? I do have a separate Instagram channel where I do use Japanese to teach English. But I thought, it's hard to manage many different Instagram channels. You probably
of course. Yeah.
So I thought, how can I kill two birds with one stone?
Wow, nice, good start.
And I thought, to achieve two goals with one bit of effort, I could put the Japanese subtitles. So
yeah,
and sorry, I know my Japanese is not perfect. The subtitles are probably some mistakes in there, but if you want to learn another language, you got to just try it. Don't hold back. Just try. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try and do the best I can to make those subtitles. You guys need to try and do the best you can with your English.
My Japanese is terrible, so I wouldn't even dare thinking about putting subtitles on myself. I'm lucky that on my other channel that I do for work, it's someone is there with me doing the subtitles. So it only takes them a few seconds, and for me, it would take me like an hour. So it's kind of working out which is the best scenario. Is it worth me spending an hour of their time that they're paying me for to make that translation, or someone 5 minutes? So I think we kind of do it the right way around at the minute. For sure. Anyway, So that's great. Someone asked a load of questions. Charlie did. So let's go back and.
Okay.
So he said that he's been to Sendai. Charlie, I just had a live Insta live with earlier. He lives in Tokyo at the minute, and he said he's been to Sendai. And he asks what your favorite Japanese dish is.
Oh my God, my favorite Japanese dish. That's a really, really hard question. I love Japanese food. So, I guess I would have to say inago. No, I'm just kidding. Inago is pan-fried grasshopper. Just kidding. I love sushi. I would say that's my top. Yeah, absolutely. Raw fish, sashimi.
Just on that note, have you noticed any difference between the quality of Japanese cuisine in the US compared to England?
You know what?
So not England to Japan, sorry, obviously.
Oh, to Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's different because the ingredients are local. And so...
In Japan or in the US?
Both, right? So, like, I was at a Japanese restaurant here in New York 2 weeks ago. The name is Kokage. It's a little bit pricey, but a lot of the ingredients are flown in from Japan. And it was really, really good. I had soup and the dashi, the soup stock. Absolutely the best I've ever had in New York. But I guess if you want good Japanese food, it's expensive. And
sure,
I like Japanese sake, and it's 3 or 4 times the cost compared to Japan.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's like beer over here for an ale, because England's very famous for ale. And to try and find a good ale is kind of difficult, because they make their own stuff here, but for me it's never the same, never quite the same as home. And to get the stuff that I would like, it's quite expensive. So, and then he also asks, oh sorry, I flicked down. Any Japanese culture shocks when you came over? Because that was a long time ago, so obviously maybe there was a lot of differences between the Japan of then to the Japan of now. Right.
So 2 years or 3 years before I went to Japan, I started studying Japanese.
Oh, great idea.
And at that time, I had some Japanese friends in my university. So I kind of didn't really have a lot of culture shock or culture shock experiences when I went there. And I think the fact that I was learning the language, or I had a little bit of a sense of the language when I got there, kind of helped. But, it's interesting when you live in another country, the first little while is, wow, why do they do it like that?
Yeah, sure.
And then after 4 years, I started thinking, like, why do Americans do it like that?
Yeah. Yeah, you're completely right. Yeah, I feel that moment nowadays more than before, for sure. And what's your favorite aspects of Japan?
I like the food. That's probably number one. I like the culture. There are some aspects of the culture. Japanese people tend to always be on time. Punctuality is good. People have a strong work ethic. And what I mean by that is no matter what your job is, whether it's, designing something or running the train system or cleaning the toilets, people do their job and do their job well, or try to do their job well, which is why the trains are always on time compared to New York City. I don't know how the trains are in London or in the UK. Terrible, right. So, so I like that aspect. I like that when you expect something, your expectations usually met.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree.
When you call the repairman or the repair person to your house, they say, okay, we'll be at your house tomorrow at 12 o'clock. My mom, like now it's 10 o'clock, right? We share the house with my mom. She's been waiting for somebody to come to repair something for 3 hours. But in Japan, if they say we'll be there at 10, at 10 o'clock, they're there.
Yeah, you're completely right. That is like a big perk for sure. That is one of the things I do love. And I worked in the hospitality industry for a long time before moving, and it's not treated as a career in England at all. And then over here is like just even the I don't know what you call it in America, maybe busboy, the person who takes all the plates, etc.
Right.
They still put their all effort in. And
Right.
at home, maybe it's like lackadaisical, so it's super different. So that even that's
Sure.
nice.
For
Someone
sure.
asks, do you think, can Japanese food make you avoid obesity and live longer?
There's a lot of scientific and evidence that says that Japanese food is very healthy and it contributes to your long life. However, it's not helping me tackle being fat because I love the taste too much. And
Yeah.
when I go to Japan, I overeat.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Maybe Japanese food is good for helping Japanese people remain healthy and have a long life. But for me, I love the taste, and when I go to Japan, I eat.
Yeah, same as me. Exactly the same. I'm still eating. I put on loads of weight recently,
Yeah.
and it's just, well, yeah, I put on loads of weight. No, I'm joking. But it's like the different types of fried food they have. They have like a lot of different types of fried food, which really surprised me at first. And then I kind of wondered how do they keep very fit, because it's very rare to find someone larger or someone who's overweight here.
Right.
But I think it's moderation. Moderation is
Right.
key, yeah.
And what I find about Japanese food is there's a balance. There's always a lot of variety. There's many vegetables. There's a nice balance of proteins, carbs, things like that.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's probably why.
Yeah, 100%. So I completely agree. So you spent 4 years in Japan. What did you do after that?
After that, Geos, the company that I work with, had a school in New York. So
Fantastic.
I wanted to come back here to get a master's degree
Mm-hmm.
in teaching. That was my goal, degree in TESOL. And so I came back to New York. I worked in Geos as a teacher and then a program coordinator. And at the same time, I ended up not getting a master's in teaching English. I ended up getting an MBA instead. And then I kind of they pulled me out of the classroom and they made me a manager. And I kind of went up the company ladder and I became a director. And that's what I did for, the 12 years or so that I left Japan. And then, unfortunately, Geos, or fortunately, I don't know, Geos went bankrupt around 2009. And then in 2010, I started Happy English.
So did the bankruptcy come in coordination with the problem with the banks? I know that was maybe a year or two earlier, but was there any effect from that on the company?
I think it was the Lehman shock, the Asian economic crisis. It was a combination of things, and the market changed. The adult eikaiwa business in Japan kind of went like a little bit like this, and the kids eikaiwa business kind of went like this. And Geos had a kids school, but they kept opening adult schools, and adults were not buying eikaiwa lessons, especially expensive eikaiwa lessons like that. So that's what happened to them, I guess. But that's good for me and good for you because we can have this conversation now.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting to look back on that time because even though it's like a long time ago, it doesn't feel that long ago, and the effects of that was pretty awful. But that's great that you were forced into making that decision. Do you take your own step, or do you go back into another job? So was that a difficult step to take?
Actually, I worked for another language school company for 10 years, which I won't name. I hated the job. It wasn't a good fit for me. And then I decided, you know what? I'm tired of management. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to teach. I love to teach. I love being in the classroom. Even though I was in management, I was often helping students.
Sure.
And so I wanted to teach. And so that's why I decided to do this, and I'm thrilled to death and happy that I did that. Yeah,
that's fantastic, man. That's so good. Was it a big step to? I imagine you ran that on the side whilst you were deciding what to do with that job at the time, and then you built up your students, and then moved on from there. Yeah.
Kind of. I had a side hustle. I was as I was developing Happy English and building the business and getting more clients, I was running around to different secondhand shops and buying old stuff and selling it on eBay, which is an online.
Oh man, yeah.
And
Wow.
so I completely I haven't been an employee in almost 10 years.
That's great.
I had the side hustle. I was doing eBay, and then I was building up Happy English. And then I did that for 2 years. And then I got to the point that I said, okay, I, I don't have time anymore for eBay. And then a year later, I opened I rented an office in Manhattan. So I got to that point. So now I've got an office in the city. And the business just keeps growing and growing. Thank God, knock on wood.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really, really fantastic. Do you enjoy being in New York?
I love it.
Mm.
I love it because New York is a very international city, and people from all over the world live here, and they've brought their food. And
Yeah.
so, and as you guys can tell, I like to eat, and I like to go out and have good food from this country or that country, Japanese food, Korean food, French food, Thai food, Turkish food, whatever, and we can get that in New York, and I love that international mix.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you've got a long, storied career in teaching, which is great.
Yeah.
You've been in 2 separate countries. Do you see a difference between the level of learner between like what you get maybe now as to the Japanese students you had in the past, and do you see any common issues they may have between each student?
Why is my camera all of a sudden dark? Why am I dark? Yeah, so a lot of the students that I have here in New York, most of my students come from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the business people that I teach here are a little bit higher level than the students that I work with. I guess that's kind of the difference. There's a difference between studying English in your own country and living in another country where that language is spoken. God, why am I so dark? I feel like I'm dark all of a sudden. And I think that I do think it's possible that if you don't live in an English-speaking country, that you can still improve your skill. But I'd say that some of the students that I meet tend to be a little bit higher than the students that I met when I was living in Japan.
Sure, because they have everyday occurrences that they come across, yeah.
Right, and there's English all over the place, and there's a little bit more opportunity.
Sure. Are they, from my experience here, Japanese learners of English are a little reluctant to speak because within the culture they prefer not to make too many errors in front of people, Do you find that it's a similar atmosphere in such a multicultural city as New York, or do you find that actually it's very similar to here?
That's a great question. I don't have a lot of experience meeting with my students outside the classroom, but I can tell you that in the classroom, I only teach a one-to-one class, and so my students have a lot of opportunity to speak. It's a conversation-based class, and so
lush. Yeah.
even if they're a little bit shy, or I pull it out of them. I make them speak, and so a lot of my students, probably people who study with other teachers, maybe they know more vocabulary or their grammar is more advanced. But my students can speak.
That's the most important thing.
My students can have a conversation, and that's my goal for them. Like,
yeah, sure.
I want you to be able to speak.
Yeah, I know. I think it's the best scenario, because then if you can speak and you're confident to try and speak, you're more likely to make many errors, which is a good thing, in essence. Yeah, because the more you try different structures, and the more you do it, it becomes automatic. The ones that you know can then go to the back of your head, and then you can concentrate on the ones that you're a little unsure of. And that's where it gets difficult, obviously. But at the start, there's so much information, so the more you can knock back, then it's finished with. So yeah, that's really good.
And we don't care if you make a mistake. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake. When you have a conversation with someone at the end of the conversation, they don't go home and say, "Oh, I met this nice guy, you know, Kazutomo today, but ooh, his prepositions are no good." Like, we don't say that.
No. Because, and I'll be 100% honest, I don't think I ever used the word preposition until I became a teacher.
Right.
So, you know, that one small factor is one thing, isn't it? You know, like the terminology is a bit different as a native speaker when you learn, well, when you're teaching to when you're a non-teacher. So,
Absolutely.
But also, yeah, no one remembers those moments. That's the crazy thing.
Right.
No one remembers that one moment in the street. They've got enough problems with their bills and their relationships and their etc. that they don't care about that one situation.
Right.
So it's like at the back of their mind. So that's great. That's great that they try and you try and get them into the conversation, the momentum to speak often. You know, so that's really good. Someone asked, how are you dealing with shy students that are afraid to speak?
I make them speak because they're only me. And I engage them in a conversation, and so I think what I do, unconsciously to me and very unconsciously to them, I have the students in a conversation. They don't realize that they're having a conversation, and then 10 minutes went by, and I said, "See,
yeah,
talk for 10 minutes, you know." Because everyone says, "Oh, I'm shy." Yeah, I know. Just keep talking.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get that. That's many students do that, don't they? They come in, even if you've been with them for a long time, and then they start off slow. It's like when you wake up. I compare it to when you wake up. You know, you wake up a bit unsure, and then once they get in the flow, it's surprising how much they can speak. You know, and they're willing to bring out, which is great.
Absolutely.
So you just even start. Do you start quite basic sometimes and then build up slowly over time to during the conversation? So over 10 minutes, would you say you start off with very simple stuff to get them going and then build up from there?
Well, here's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my advice to everybody who's watching too. I make my students write a journal every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day they have to write something. It could be something they did. It could be like, oh, today I was watching Friends, and Joey and Monica were in the coffee shop, and Joey coffee. It doesn't matter what you write. You have to write something. So now, then they send me that document. Now in the lesson, we talk about their topics. Oh, so you went to the outside vegetable market on Saturday. How was that? What'd you buy? Oh, I bought blah blah blah. How are the prices there? Are they good? Like, we talk about their topics. Yeah. And what I found is, when you learn English and you have conversations based on your topic, it's easier to speak and it's easier to remember the new language because it's related to your world. That's why I don't use a textbook, because the textbook is not connected to their life.
Yes.
And I don't know that, you know, Yalchin is from Istanbul and he was driving to the blah, 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 blah. Who? What? Like, it's not connected to me.
Yeah, totally.
But so that's what I do. So I engage them in different conversations based on their world.
Yeah, no, that 100% makes sense, because I kind of take my Japanese learning experience as well into account. Whereas I use the Genki series, maybe you've heard of, and inside is a lot of the data is about school students. So it doesn't relate to me in any way. I actually found that the biggest frustration with the books series is all to do with school students, which is no good for me as an older person. So I found that quite frustrating. And you're right, in textbooks it is kind of making an example for the sake of an example, and it's nothing to do with the person's situation, and it dates badly. You know, a textbook between maybe 2 or 3 years can date very fast, so it's bad, isn't it? So that's a great idea. I've never thought of that before, because when I did one-on-one sessions, I'd also do something similar, but related around their hobbies or their likes, because when you have a passion, you're more likely to speak freely. You know, I always found so. Do you find that in your head now, after so many years, almost your brain is a textbook? So you have the majority of the English language you could explain just from all of your experiences, including your degree or through, I don't think the degree is the full package, you know, through your experiences as well. Do you feel like your brain has all the information you need, that even having a textbook isn't so useful for you? Not just regardless of examples.
No, because people are always asking me things that I've never thought about before. You know, it's like, oh, I never thought about that before. You know, like, what's the difference? I can't think of an example right now, but at least once a week somebody stumps me. I do have like a built-in database. So if somebody says, you know, what's the difference between, you know, should I say, you know, during driving or while driving? I said, no, it's during plus a noun. During the meeting, while driving, while plus a gerund. Like, I know those answers, like, without even thinking. But still people stump me. And that's great because it keeps me up. You know, well, we say this.
Can you guys hear me?
Situation.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. So how do you collect new data? Because you don't use a textbook necessarily with your students, but do you have a textbook, or do you use like the internet? How do you, in those situations where you're unsure and you need to find the answer, how do you find the answer?
So my favorite resource is a book, Practical English Usage by Michael Swan. Michael Swan is the author, and I think it's called Practical English or Practical something. It's a really great resource for those really tricky, difficult questions. So that's my go-to if I don't know that. Or I like to Google sentences, and I see, like, do a lot of people say that? Do we say it this way? How do we say that? So I use a lot of different things to try and figure that out. And sometimes, you know, like, there is no answer. Sometimes the answer is, that's just how we say it.
Yeah, isn't it? Do you find that how do they react when you give that response? Because that is kind of the answer sometimes, yeah? It really is the answer.
Right, but you know, in Japanese, and you study Japanese, we learn something like this. Anata no namae wa nan desu ka? Which translates to, what is your name? But first of all, Japanese people don't say watashi wa or anata wa. It's just part of the language, but that's not how people speak. And so there's a difference between everyday speech and what's grammatically correct.
Yes.
So, you know, I started studying Japanese, now that I think about it, 1990. That's 30 years ago, almost. Oh my God, am I old. Anyway, I've never heard a Japanese person ask, Anata no namae wa nan desu ka? What is your name? That way. But I learned that in the book. I learned it in my textbook. You know.
Do you think that's because of the structures in English, and they're trying to help the people who are learning it from an English standpoint understand it as close? Because the languages are two different things, aren't they? And very, very different, those two. Do you think that's the reason why they put it in that almost strange structure to Japanese that we wouldn't have known about at that point? And that maybe many English textbooks are laid out the same way for English learners, yeah?
Okay, I want everybody, when we're done with this conversation, to listen to what Stu just asked me, because that's going to help you all. Yes, when you learn another language, they take the language and they try to mold it or shape it into the language that is native to the learner. And so Japanese textbooks are written in a very unnatural way. Stu sensei, konnichiwa. Maikuru sensei, konnichiwa. Genki desu ka? Hai. Anata wa? Hai, genki desu. Like, that conversation does not exist in Japanese, but it exists in every Japanese learning textbook.
Yeah.
And it's not natural. It's the same as this. So, and this is the first time that we've met, right? The first time we've talked,
Yeah.
right? How many times in the UK do people greet each other with "How do you do"?
Do you know, everyone's asked me the same question. I've never heard someone actually. I'm sure there's a situation. There's a situation for everything. You know, English is terrible for that, but
Right.
it is rare, and it's probably an older form of language that somehow has continued through the textbooks. But because it's like I don't know. I have no reason why that's in the textbook, but yeah, it's in every textbook.
But I'll bet, and I don't know, I've never met her, but if I had the opportunity to meet the Queen,
yep,
she might say, "How do you do?"
She's portrayed as saying that all the time. So I think maybe you're right. That's maybe, yeah.
I don't know. No disrespect to the Queen, but "How do you do" is a phrase that if you want to see people use that, there's a great old American movie. It's called Casablanca. Watch that movie. It was made in 1940, and that's how people talked in 1940. People don't talk like that anymore. So textbooks are filled with language that people don't often use.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. And there's quite a lot of it actually in English textbooks. So, you know, English evolves very fast. Every new generation has many new words. Do you come across words on a regular basis? Because obviously New York is I think is quite up with the times, if you want to say. And do you come across phrases in your everyday life that you haven't heard before in that context? I think it's more contextual problems. But so, for example, my example is in England for sure. I never heard the phrase "lit," the word "lit" used outside of the context of like a match or like to do with fire. But then recently I see it used more like "great." So,
that's interesting. If I said, you know, like I was lit last night, it means I was drunk last night.
So yeah. There's another one, yeah, for sure. I know that one as well, but now you've just reminded me, yeah, for sure. But like, I've seen it more recently used like that is lit. So before I read that, I had no idea what it meant, even though it's in English. But do you come across that in your everyday life where some student maybe asks you, what does this mean? And you're like, in this context, I'm not sure what it is. You know, in those moments, do you feel like, do you have to pause yourself from saying, that's not correct? Because, do you see what I mean? Like, it feels like it shouldn't be correct.
My answer to that when it happens is that I've never heard that before. I don't know. And the thing is that and probably I don't know if you know this about me, but this is Reveal Michael's Day. I tend to be a workaholic, and so I'm not out there hanging out in the bars all the time. I'm kind of working all the time. I don't personally. I'm not so exposed to that kind of slang because I don't really I don't watch TV at all. I don't see movies very often. So I kind of I focus on this, and I'm a musician on the side, so I kind of do that. I don't know, but when a lot of times students present me with language or something that I've never heard before, and I always make the excuse, maybe that's British English. Like I've never heard that. Maybe that's slang there. I don't know, but you know,
it could be though. That's the thing.
Yeah, but you know, like I don't deflect to maybe that's wrong. I just deflect to, you know what? I've never heard that before. Let me check on it because I don't know everything, you know, and I don't want to give somebody a half an answer.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because maybe it's like an older style, but I think many teachers almost commit to saying before checking. commit to saying like it's not correct because of, and maybe me at the start as well. So when you don't want to feel like you're being embarrassed by the person who's learning off of you, which is understandable to a degree, but also the more important thing is what the information is correct, So
right.
When you first came across this situation, do you remember how it made you feel? Like I remember when this happened to me. So, but
yeah,
obviously your time is longer.
Way back in the last century, when I started teaching English, as Michael falls deeper in the generation gap. When I first started teaching, there were a lot of things that I thought, no, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. No, that's wrong. How to handle that. And then my trainer, we had a session on error correction, when to correct and how to correct and when not to correct. And he said something very interesting. He said, if you're in a class and students are speaking, and let's say, for example, today's class topic is, I don't know, adverbs of frequency, often, never, sometimes. If a person is speaking and they make a mistake using the target language, then you need to correct because that's the point. But if they say something else that's not related to the target language, then you shouldn't correct because that doesn't help their self-confidence and their fluency.
Overload, yeah.
And it's not related to the lesson. So that's a delicate balance what to correct. But that's my memory from a long time ago to answer that question.
Yeah, sure. So when I'm moving to Japan. Obviously here, nearly everywhere is American English. There's one brand that's like a British English school. I do not know how they keep up that brand if there's other nationalities within the school, but most schools are American English. So I went in. I don't have a degree in English, but I have like a lot of experience coaching and teaching. So I have the school I work at is a range between 0 to 16, the kids, and their level's really high because it's bilingual level. So their level is like a native speaker, basically. And I was coming across everyday situations where even just talking to staff was like a humbling experience, because the language is so different. It's not so different, that's not correct, but just the way words are used, there's a slight difference,
right,
and slight nuances to each thing. So I'm kind of glad, but I hated it at the time, but I'm glad I went through that, because that moment where the next time when a student corrected me, for example, because they've heard it from another teacher who's more experienced, and I've actually said it incorrectly and wrong in the class, I was like, oh, really? But maybe the first time I would have been like, no. But because I've had this experience around me, it's great to actually then be humble enough to be corrected by the student. I'd be fine. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, let me just check. I don't want to give you the wrong information. And that started super early for me. But I think if I didn't have this experience, then that would never have happened. And obviously since then, it's been a long time, and you grow very quickly on the job in this job. So, it's crazy. Absolutely. It's really, really crazy.
Absolutely. But, that's the thing. To me, the learning foreign language or second language teaching and second language learning, I'm not. I always tell my students, I'm not a teacher. I'm your coach. I'm going to help you.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to help
really
you.
Interesting.
I'm going to teach you. A teacher is a person who lectures and stands at the front of the room and gives the information. I don't do that. I suck the information out of my students. I pull it out of them, and I guide them. And that's what I do. And I engage them in conversation. And they make mistakes, and I make mistakes. But I will say this about your experience that you just mentioned. I think teachers at the beginning, language teach, as you get more experience, you start monitoring very carefully the language that you're using as you're speaking. You don't do that normally in everyday conversation, but when you're with a student, you're very aware of the words and the way that you're speaking, so that you don't confuse the other person. You know, so
Yeah.
I always try and uh, tailor how I'm speaking to each person, based on, I know, oh, this person's level is here or this person's level is here. I should use this kind of vocabulary or something. So I'm self-monitoring, I guess is the word I'm
So
thinking
that's
of.
super interesting because I think our experiences are kind of reversed. So I don't have any of that level of qualification in English. My qualifications is a slightly different area, but still to do with helping people. So I have like a vast experience. Before moving, I had a vast experience of working with people, so I could deal with that side very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I can do quite well is once I know the information. Now I know I don't need so much help, but now once I know the information, I could easily find a simple way to transmit that to the student.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I also see other people who have a lot of information, who have a lot of knowledge in the area, but then do not know how to transfer it across. So it's such a delicate balance, isn't it, teaching?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I don't want to mislead anybody. I have no, you know, except for my teacher training experience on the job. I don't have a degree in TESOL. I didn't study linguistics in college. In university, I was a music major. I studied music composition, music performance, and music education. And then 10 years later, I did an MBA. So I have no formal English teaching experience, but I've been doing this for, you know, a long time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think experience equates more. There's a big argument between degree and experience, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Super, super interesting, that part of the conversation. But we've got like 15 minutes left, and I want to kind of lighten it a bit. So have you ever thought about mixing the two together, music and teaching?
Yeah, I have. And when I'm helping students with pronunciation and intonation, I always, you know, do things rhythmically. And also with for example, people always ask, what's the difference between cap, like a cap on my head, and a cup? And so I draw the music notation that cap, the vowel sound is a little bit longer, cap, and cup is shorter, cup, cap, cup, cap, cup. So I introduce elements of music like that. But someday,
that's super interesting transfer you've done over there.
Someday I'm going to grab my guitar, and I'm going to put out a bunch of songs that people can sing to practice grammar. That's in the back of my head.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've seen one guy do it with a piano. It's interesting. It's tough. That must be such a tough task to do, to get the correct lyrics to make it interesting and exciting. But that's such an interesting challenge, yeah?
Right. Yeah.
So like me, you seem to be on a lot of social media. So I've seen you on TikTok. How do you find TikTok?
I just started TikTok. And
how did you find it?
When I started doing TikTok, I realized that day by day, I fall deeper and deeper into the generation gap. But I'm learning it. I'm trying to learn what's the best style to use there. It's very, very different. It's similar to Snapchat, because I'm also on Snapchat.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, that's a challenge. I think that's a challenge, because there are a lot of people who do really, really well on TikTok. It's a new style of media for me, so I'm learning.
But it must.
How about yourself?
It depends, really, because do you know what the most difficult part is? Is that TikTok really locates you in your area. So all the videos you get is surrounding you. Like for mine are all from Japan.
Oh,
so
okay.
So for yourself, it'll probably be all around the Americas, yeah? So for me, it's a bit difficult to because I feel here the learners are a lower level than like in Europe, where they're surrounded by British English all the time, yeah? So here, there's not so much of that around, and not so many. There are people, but they don't. There's not so much conversation between the two. So I find the levels lower. So I have to really work out a way to simplify the way I transmit language across that media. I'd love to work out a way. I can't work out to do it yet, but I'm thinking maybe lip sync to a song on TikTok and then take it over to Instagram and then explain the lyrics or something along those lines, potentially. So something just a little different. I think it's a great platform. It's got potential, so much potential, for a teacher. And I think we need to, like you say, teacher is like a dated word for me. And we need to get away from that idea of someone being in the front of the classroom and being someone who's almost robotic, and we need to get back to trying to find each person's way of learning. And I think TikTok can open up a lot of doors because it's a very relaxed atmosphere compared to some platforms. So it's super interesting.
I agree. So, and a little bit of a learning curve for me, to be honest, but
massive for me as well. I feel like I'm out of touch with it as well. So no worries. It's really, really like for a younger age, and I'm sure many people thought the same about Facebook and Instagram at the start. So that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So that's great. And then, so you have had a lot of students. Do you have anyone else from any other nationalities where you've had to research different material, like as in to get more information about their cultures?
Yeah. Like I have students from France, from Italy. Let's see, France, Italy, Spain, South Korea, and Taiwan. Right now, that's an international mix. And so I always try and find maybe some news article that's related to what's going on in their country, or keep in touch with as much as I can, maybe pop culture or technology things. There was a recent in France, there was a recent law passed that cell phones are banned in schools, and I work with my French student to talk about that. What do you think about that? So I try and keep I think my whole gig, my whole style of teaching with my private students is I only want to use material that's connected to you. I don't want. I'm not going to bring something that has no relevance or not related to your life or your everyday life, because I can't remember any of that stuff when I studied Japanese that way. So I always try and find something. So it takes a long time to prepare lessons. If I was a textbook teacher, I could just grab a textbook and just sit down and do it. But I spend a lot of my time prepping, and so that's. But that's what the students need. They need to have a connection between the material and their everyday life. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's super interesting. What advice would you give to students who are? One of the most common things I get asked about is how can I speak more like a native speaker? What's your opinion on that? Sorry, I was trying to work out a way to get that question.
Are you talking? Is that a pronunciation question? Or a fluency question?
I'd say it's more fluency. Fluency is the buzzword at the minute, so I'd say fluency probably.
Yeah. All right. So here's Michael's philosophy. Language has input and output. Input is reading and listening. Output is speaking and writing. And if you want to improve your skills, like fluency, you need all of that every day. You have to listen to English a little bit every day. You gotta read a little bit every day, and you have to listen and speak and write. And so the best thing to do for your fluency, if you don't have somebody that you can speak with, is you grab a book and you open it and you say, if someone had seen The Gathering in Dear Uncle's house an hour before and they see it again now, it would be impossible. You read with your voice. I know that a lot of adults, and most of the people watching are probably adults right now, adult English learners, think, oh, I used to read with my voice when I was 7 years old. That's so childish. No, that's one way that you can improve your fluency, practice your fluency, and gain confidence, because you've got to have the words come out of your mouth.
Nice.
If you don't have output, you're not going to improve. Many people listen and they watch YouTube, and yeah, I'm learning with YouTube, but they go to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And nothing comes out because you're not used to that. So you've got to do that. You have to speak. You have to read out loud. If you don't want to do that, then you talk to yourself. Every morning, open the refrigerator and do this with your mouth. What am I going to have for breakfast? I have eggs every day. Eggs are boring. Oh, maybe I'll have cereal. There's milk. I wonder if I have cereal. And you just narrate with your voice your everyday movements in the house. You have to have, the sound has to come out of your mouth somehow every day for you to be comfortable. And that's going to build fluency.
I think it's very useful to people can see exactly what you mean. Because words are one way to transfer this information, but also to see what you're saying is more important, I think. And I love the way you did it. Thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. And I think that people actually forget that a native speaker does actually open the fridge and say, what shall I have for breakfast? I say that maybe every day. Yeah, so I don't know why we seem to think that it's weird, because we actually do it in our own languages. Yeah.
Right.
So it's interesting, isn't it? It's like it's just a psychological thing that we all have, this small psychological problem. And we should kick that door down as soon as possible if we want to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to think out loud. That's what it is. It's thinking out loud in English. You open the closet and you look and you go, let's see, it's a little cold today. Maybe I should wear a sweater. Yeah, but it's gonna get warm in the afternoon. I don't know if I want to wear a sweater today. And you just have that conversation with yourself that you usually have, but have that conversation in English. And that's a great way for fluency. And then maybe your family members or your roommates might think that you're a little weird. Stop worrying about what other people think. That's another discussion, but that's a big problem we have in life today in society.
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't matter what other people think. You walk down the street, you look in the shoe shop, okay? We talked about studying, right, before? Let's say that your teacher or your class, you learned adjective comparisons. A is bigger than B. B is more expensive than A. So you walk down the street in the town, you look at the shoe shop, and you say, the brown shoes are more expensive than the white shoes. Yeah, but the white shoes are nicer than the brown shoes. Oh, but then again, the black shoes are more stylish than the brown shoes and the white shoes. So there's your voice. Using your voice a little bit quiet so that the people on the street don't look at you, but who cares? That you're using your voice in order to practice what you just learned in school.
Yeah, it's definitely a perfect thing to do. The biggest question I've been asking myself recently is, it's very easy for us to say this advice, and then to see it from the mindset of the learner is we cannot see every situation. We can assume. And even though we've also gone through this similar scenario, new situations crop up all the time and you don't see every scenario at all. So it's what's the best way to transfer that information to the student so they see that. And everyone is saying the same thing. And many people are saying, not the way that you've said it, actually. This is the first time I've had this conviction in this kind of topic area, but I mean everyone has a similar kind of ethos they're trying to give to the student, and there must be a reason. It's the same as we have many different things. I can give a lot of good advice but not use it myself as well, so it's very interesting, I think, the psychology of everything.
But that's what I did. when I lived in Japan, like I would wake up in the morning and I would go into the bathroom and I would say, "Ja, saisho ni hamigaki suru," and I would brush my teeth. And then after that, I would say, "Ja, tsugi ni kao o araimasu," and I would wash my face. And that's what my advice to my students is. What I did that. I always did that. I had little pieces of paper all over my house with Japanese words. Like on the refrigerator, it said reizoko, and on the television, it said terebi o miru. And so I did that. That's what I did. And I know maybe that sounds weird, but I think
no, not at all.
It doesn't there isn't one perfect way for everybody. You have to find what's comfortable for you. But if you just focus on or think of the idea, language has 4 skills: reading, listening, speaking, writing. You have to do all 4 of those things every day, even if it's for 5 minutes each. You have to do all of that. And I know a lot of people avoid writing. Oh, writing. I can't. No, you have to do it. It's like going to the gym. I hate going to the gym, right? But like if you want to exercise, you have to do it. So like that's it. Like there is no Stu or me or 212 English Mike. None of us have any magic dust that we can hand you that you're going to be an English speaker. You got to do it. And so that's what you have to do. You read something every day, write something every day, listen to something every day, and speak. And if you don't have someone to speak to, look in the mirror.
Do you think these days we've only got 2 minutes left. So the last question for this bit.
Yeah.
Do you think these days that to say you have no one to speak to is even possible?
No, not at all. Not at all. You can find thousands of people to talk to or to even chat with, and then eventually talk to if you're comfortable on social media. Every time there's tons of English teachers out there, we all post content, and then people respond. So talk to those other people. You don't have to talk
definitely.
to a native speaker. That's a myth. Oh, I must speak to a native speaker to be good at English. No, you don't. Speak to anyone. Don't wait for a native speaker.
I don't think that's a myth. I think it's an excuse, actually.
You're probably right. Yeah.
I honestly think that nowadays. The amount of people that say it is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, sorry, the time, an hour. And I want to give you the chance to be able to promote something if you've got anything to promote. So, as you spent all this time here, so.
Yeah. So I'll promote this. I've got a new book. It's called Everything Your Grammar Book Didn't Teach You. It's all of those things like what's the difference between even though, and even if, or because or because of. Amazon.com. You can check that. Come to my, Happy English NY. Obviously you know that because you're watching this. All the links in my profile. And here's what I want to promote. Practice English every day. Do that. That's all you need.
That's nice.
Stu, thank you for this opportunity. Great.
No, man. Thank you. It's such a good chat. We didn't even get onto the words, but yeah, thank you very much. Really, really enjoyed it.